Welcome to the Hollywood Scholar. I'm Jed Morgan, and the slight excitement that I got upon the announcement of Russell T Davies returning to Doctor Who slowly slipped away as we got more and more announcements of who was going to play the Doctor, what their focus would be, and generally who Russell T Davies is these days. And he's not the man he was when he made the incredible early seasons of New Who and brought it back into the limelight and reintroduced it to so many new generations. I love what he used to do, but I just don't know if he can recapture the magic. And at this point, I'm a staunch opposer to Doctor Who continuing. In my head, it ended in season 10. That's where I'm happy leaving it, cutting it off. But there's still news coming out about it, and it's very mixed. This is the first time that there's been news about the show coming up that has been mixed for me. Some good stuff, some bad stuff. But let's get into it. This is from Bleeding Cool, and I know I'm using them as a source, but they had it all together for me. I know. But Doctor Who boss just confirmed that Ncuti Gatwa's Time Lord is going nowhere. So this is part of the bad news, and part of the good news is why this has happened. But Ncuti Gatwa hasn't officially started filming yet, apparently. He hasn't shot anything as the Doctor yet, which definitely leads us to believe that the David Tennant special will be coming early next year, and that the 60th anniversary will be 3 specials spread across 2023, with his introduction really being at the end. So that really also leans into the fact that it's possible that David Tennant will be the 14th Doctor, or the one that Jodie Whittaker regenerates into, because if Ncuti hasn't shot anything yet, Power of the Doctor's already done. So there's ripe for speculation with that announcement that he hasn't officially started shooting his time in the TARDIS yet. And again, his time in the TARDIS might not include his addition in the Power of the Doctor. So there's plenty of room for speculation, but that's not the important part. So Davies was recently at a BBC Academy's online Climate Creatives Conference this Wednesday, and already as soon as I heard that, I was a little bit concerned. I really don't want to see what he has to say at a climate change conference of any kind. What is he going to say about Doctor Who at this type of convention? And when talking about these climate change issues that most of Hollywood and BBC does input into their stories these days at the expense of the plot and the characters, he talked about how it was tricky to deal with real world problems with the fantastical framework of the show, which is a good answer. It's like, all right, sweet. Okay, he realizes that it's difficult to do it and he should focus on the story. Great. And then it kind of goes off the rails. But then he promised that in season 2, they would be examining how we ignore things. We'll get into more detail of the quote in a second here, but how we ignore things, I'm not sure I like where that is going. But it is confirmed now that he plans on doing a second season. We kind of all assume that, but this is his verbal confirmation that he will be continuing into season 15 at this point. But going on to some of his actual quotes, he said, so it's very difficult. Like, why doesn't he walk out of the TARDIS and cure cancer? Why doesn't he fix the ozone? And that's the question that we didn't really want to ask as fans. It was just, he's a fantastical person, and he actually has that great fan-oriented response at first. It's a tricky one, and you've got to take a deep breath and say, that's not what we're here for. Yes, thank you. Doctor Who is about entertainment, showing this incredible story, and opening us up to the broader universe, and having some excitement about the possibility of space and time travel. It's not supposed to educate us. He's not supposed to swoop in and solve all our issues. He's very much serving at the behest of the human race, as Peter Capaldi said to Bill. And that's kind of how we always wanted it. So he had a good response initially, and then things went off the rails a little bit. We're here to have an enormous, rattling adventure for 50 minutes and have fun and make the audience happy. Keep going really good, and that's very important. But there are stories, there are stories that are on the way, specifically looking at stuff like that, not all the time. So at least he's spreading it out. The Chibnall era does not spread it out at all. Every single episode is about giving you a message, no plot, no characters. It's just like, you're bad because this, you're bad because of that, be better, do this. And it was getting tiring even before they destroyed the canon. And it seems like at least he's planning on having some good rattling adventures in between there. Now, these are just his intentions, but the fact that he's saying that he's already thinking about how he can include climate change and stuff like that into the story is slightly concerning to me. He has in the past put in messages into his episodes that were done well, so he has the talent to do it, but he hasn't demonstrated that talent in well over a decade. So maybe he's lost the edge. So it's very concerning. That's why I was saying this is very mixed bag news. At least he was saying, hey, that's not what the show is for. We don't want to do it very often, but we might do it sometimes. Okay, I can skip a few episodes. Maybe. These are mixed comments. And that's just all I can think of about it. It's the world we're living in. Oh, that's never a good thing to say. And I'm much more interested in trying to looking forward in season 2, what is taking a look at how we ignore these things. So I don't like how he's saying how we ignore these things, how he's talking about representing the world that we live in. That's always a red flag in modern day Hollywood and the BBC. It really just destroys everything with the narrative, as we've so often seen. But at least he's pushing it on to season 2. He seems to have the intention to get back to formula for his first season. This doesn't necessarily get me more excited about his era coming up. I'm still very concerned about what the BBC would even let him do, not to mention what type of man he's become and what type of shows he's been writing ever since he left Doctor Who back in 2009. It's complicated and it's a mixed bag. I will be checking out the first couple episodes at least getting through the 60th anniversary, at least getting all the way through 2023 to see what type of changes he makes, if he does stick to formula. And I want more than anything to have good Doctor Who again. That's what I want more than anything. But I just don't think that can ever happen again. And as long as the Timeless Children is still canon in his version of the show, his return to the show, I'm not interested, because that destroys everything. If he doesn't decanonize that very early on, I'm out, because Chris Chibnall already tore everything down, and Russell T Davies can try to play with what's left, but it's crumbled. And unless he gets rid of Timeless Children, it's not coming back. And it seems like Peter Capaldi has actually realized this as well, because he actually has ruled out returning to the 60th. I'd rather leave it as it is. I want to get into his comments in a second. But he was the one who was so severely abused by the BBC and kind of forced out of the role. He wanted to keep going. Of all the fans besides David Tennant and New Who, he was the one who was the biggest fan. He wrote fan mail. He was obsessive about the show as a child. He knew and breathed Doctor Who like nearly no other, and he was one of the best actors to take on the role. He's not my favorite Doctor, but he's definitely one of the best actors to ever take on the role. And he just got in at the bad time, and it hurt him. And I think it really damaged his love of the show because of all the things that happened to him between Stephen Moffat and the BBC, that he has no interest in returning. There was a lot of speculation about him returning with David Tennant and all of them returning Catherine Tate, but I think he's really broken, and he's no longer interested after everything that happened to him. He said, it's very hard to imagine how you'd get a decent crack at the whip when there's 14 of, so I'd rather leave it as it is, because I love my time on The Doctor and love doing it. And that's something you want to hear. It's just like, hey, I just don't think I can live up to that. And he tried his best. And that's something that no one can deny for Peter Capaldi. He really did try his best. I don't want to be the Doctor's assistant. It used to drive me insane on Doctor Who not being able to talk about anything. It's like, who cares? But then I get into trouble. And that's something that we've heard about rumors for a long time, that he was often fighting with the executives, trying to make it a good show, trying to focus things. But he kept getting in trouble for it. He was just the talent. And that doesn't apply to him because of how intelligent he is and how much he loved the show. He understood it more than nearly anybody else there. And the executives were pushing a certain type of narrative, and it was destroying the show. He fought back, and it ultimately led into season 11 with Chris Chibnall taking over. It just burnt out Stephen Moffat and Peter Capaldi trying to make a good show. And that really, really sucks, because they tried and they got a few good episodes in there, but it really, really hurt these men. But overall, these are some interesting comments, and I'm glad he's not coming back, because I don't want his era to be tainted any more than it was by some of the poor writing and the poor studio intervention that happened through a lot of his era. And I just don't want to see this man hurt again like he was for so much of his era on Doctor Who. So overall, this is a lot of mixed news. I'm glad he's not coming back to have it ruined. I'm glad Russell is able to admit that he still basically understands some stuff about Doctor Who, but I am concerned that he had these comments at a climate change convention, and that he said he does intend to include these types of messages going forward. I really can't say one way or another. I'm definitely leaning more towards pessimism, considering the current state of Hollywood and the BBC, but there is hope, and I wouldn't blame anyone necessarily for having hope for this coming era, considering some of the news that we've gotten in the past and these comments from Russell T Davies himself. But anyway, that's all I have for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Anon. If you like what I do here and want to see good, compelling stories that Hollywood will no longer give you, check out my book series, Odyssey of a Phoenix, a mythological epic about philosophy, morality, and modern-day mental illness issues. Books 1, Down in Flames, and Book 2, Apocalypse Then, currently on sale. Book 3, Kill the Dark, coming soon.